Hello there. This video might be one of the most important videos I've made so far, so I encourage you to stay with me till the end, since I believe this could really help your chess improvement. Whenever I watch title players analyzing lower rated players' game, I notice one thing, and that they are always focused on positional mistakes lower rated players make. And once the player makes so-called positional blunder, they go on and on about why the move is wrong and how to avoid to mistake in the future by better understanding the position and so on. But when the real blunder happens, I'm talking about one move blunders which immediately hangs a piece and loses the game. They just go over it like, and then he blundered, and this is it. It's very rare that you will see title player trying to analyze a blunder and to discuss a blunder, or let alone to try to extract a lesson from it and use the blunder to give advice to a student or to the player whose game is analyzed how to avoid a blunder in the future. In my experience, the title players just don't take blunders seriously enough, because from their perspective, this is just something that happens from time to time, and at some point, it just stops happening. So title players almost never make this simple one-move blunder by just hanging a piece. It's very, very rare event. And from their perspective, most of them stopped making this kind of one-move blunders as a kids, so they just played chess, and at some point when they were 9 or 10 or 11, it just came naturally not to blunder. And they didn't took any methodological effort to try to stop blundering. It just somehow magically disappeared, and their subconscious took the wheel, and the subconscious makes sure that the blunders don't happen. But well, for us late start adult improvers, it's a different story. And you can see the thing I'm talking about if you look, for example, famous Jeremy Silman's book Amateur Mind. In this book, he tries to teach lower rated players some sophisticated positional concepts, like, for example, how to play against hanging pawns. And he records the lesson, and from time to time, his students, they just make a blunder, they just hang a piece or something. And then when this happens, Silman just tells the student, oh, no, it's a blunder, it hangs a piece, don't play this, take the move back. And then he continues the positional lesson about positional chess. So this is the typical mentality of titled coach who sees his student blunders, and he just said, oh, you blundered, and the lesson ends it as far as the blunder goes. And similarly, you can see this if you watch otherwise excellent analysis by Grandmaster Jesse Cry, in which he analyzes amateur games, low-rated players. And he spends a great amount of time explaining positional mistakes, explaining the position, trying to teach the viewers how to understand the position and how not to do this kind of positional blunders. And he spends a great deal of time discussing this positional aspects of the game, but then at some point blunder occurs, the one player blunders, and he's in the most cases he's just like, oh, and then he blundered and lost the game, and okay, let's go to the next game. So again, no lesson learned from the blunder. Well, all this long introduction was to tell you why I decided to make this video. And this is to show you, my viewers, and my fellow adult improvers, that it is indeed possible to learn from your blunders. So when your blunder happens in the game and you analyze your game afterwards, you can learn from the blunder, you can see why the blunder happens, and you can extract some valuable lessons from your blunders, and all this in order not to repeat the same kind of blunder in the future. And I think this is a way you can stop your blundering in the games with longer time controls, in which you can make a conscious effort to structure your way of thinking and analyzing the position. Okay, so to see what I'm talking about, for this video I prepared a dozen, so 12 examples from my own games, the blunders I have made in the long time control games. So I'm not talking about blitz and rapid, in which most time you don't have time to do systematic methodological thinking about the position. You rely on your intuition and you just blunder. So I'm not talking about this kind of blunders. I'm talking about games in which I had enough time to think and to analyze position, but yet I didn't. And I can take some valuable lessons from these positions. So I will show you these blunders. These games are either from my over-the-board games or from my Lichess 45-45 league, so all long time control games. And I'll show you the blunders and how can you extract the lesson from each blunder. So I hope that you can mimic this approach that I will show and analyze your own games and also try to extract the lessons. Okay, so let's start. The first example, this is the overboard game, one of the first overboard games I played. And in this position, and of course you can always pause the video if you want to analyze the position yourself, but the focus here will be on blunders. So in this position I made a blunder. I made rook to d8, and afterwards my opponent took advantage of the blunder by taking the rook. I had to take back, and well, he just grabbed the piece, the free pawn with the check, and he went on and win the game later. So what can I learn from this blunder? Okay, let's go back. So what did I do? I attacked the rook, and this is the problem of stopping the calculation too early. So the rule of thumb is always end calculation with your opponent's move, not with your move. So I was like, my calculation was like this. Okay, I move the rook. If he takes, it's okay, my rook is defended, I take. And my calculation ended there. And it's an error in calculation. So you need to always end the calculation with your opponent's move and look if your opponent has some forcing moves. So the correct way of calculating was, okay, rook to d8, he takes rook, I take rook back, and now it's my opponent's turn. What can my opponent do? Does he have any captures? Can he take something? Can he check me? Does he have any tactical opportunity? Whatever. So I need to visualize this position. So this is this position. I need to visualize this position and try to think for my opponent what is the best move. And if I have done that, I would certainly see that he has this knight takes f7, because it's not, I mean, it's not difficult. It's just to move calculation. I'm able to perform this kind of calculations. So it was just an error to stop the calculation on my move and not on my opponent's move. So this is one lesson learned. Okay, next time I will calculate and I will end the calculation with my opponent's move. Okay, let's go to the next example. This is from online league. Here in this position, you can see that the position is pretty sharp. So the king, his queen is in the vicinity of my king. His bishop here can pose some dangers. His rook is very active. So this is a sharp position. And here I made the blunder. I played the move g6. And after g6, he immediately checks me. Queen to e5 check. I had to move my king away, and then he can grab my the bishop. So there is this double attack here. In the game I moved the king, and then he inserted this move threatening checkmate, and it was even worse than just losing the bishop. So I lost this game very quickly. So what is the lesson here? Okay, so the lesson here is that in the sharp positions, in the positions in which there is a danger to your king and where everything is hanging, you have to do tactical blunder check really diligently. So you have to ask yourself, if I make this move I'm about to make, and in this case it was g6, so if I make this move, what checks, captures and threats does my opponent have? Especially checks. Checks are most important. So if I just was to ask myself before playing g6, if I play g6, what checks does he have in this position? I would immediately see, oh yeah, this is check. And not just check, but a double attack. And I would not play g6. Okay, lesson learned. Next time, in the sharp positions, ask yourself, if I make this move, what checks, captures and threats my opponent has? Okay, of course, you cannot do this for every move in chess game, because it would take you very long time. But in the sharp positions, you have to do this. And this position is sharp, it's open, it's full of threats, and so on. Okay, let's go to the third example. Or this one is also from my online league. So in this position, I played d6. Rook to d6. You see that my pawn is pinned and attacked, so I wanted to defend my pawn. This was my motivation. So I played rook to d6, and this is a blunder. Why? Because my opponent can win this undefended piece, which he didn't do in the game, but he could he could have done this. So he could just, for example, attack the piece. The only way to defend the piece is, you can see my all the squares are not available. So the only way is to play rook to a6, and now he can just attack my defender, and whatever I do, if I go to rook, if I wanted to defend this bishop, I have to go with rook to a5 or a4, and then he just can bring his king, and he has enough attackers and he can win the bishop. So for example, if I play here, he just brings the king, and this bishop is undefended, because once I move my rook is also undefended. So if I now move my bishop, well, my rook hangs. Okay, so what is the lesson here? This requires a little bit of calculation, but I mean, one of the main tactical resources from both sides are undefended pieces. So if you have the undefended piece on the position, in the position, especially if this undefended piece is deep in your opponent's territory, so it doesn't matter. I mean, this rook is undefended. Okay, it's not, but in the initial position, the rook is undefended. It doesn't matter so much because it's in my camp, so it's not easily attacked. But when you have undefended piece in your opponent camp, where this should be addressed. Even the undefended pieces in your camp should be addressed, let alone these in your opponent camp. So I should have thought about, okay, I have the undefended piece. This is a liability. Can he take advantage of this liability? Can he attack the undefended piece? And yes, he can. So does this provide enough protection from my undefended piece? And if I just had this way of thinking, I would certainly see that, okay, if I play here, he attacks. If I go here, well, this rook is not a good defender because it can easily be kicked away. So this is the lesson learned is keep track of undefended pieces. So if you have the undefended piece, be very, very aware of ways your opponent can attack the undefended piece. So yeah, it's a little bit unpleasant because I have this pawn. I have to let go of this pawn. So the best move is probably just to insert the check here, just to release him of the bishop pair, and then, well, I have to retreat my bishop and give this pawn away, or just move my king out of the check, and this bishop can retreat at any time. And still I would have a certain edge because I have this passed pawn here. Okay, now the next example, again from the online league. In this position, this is completely winning for position. I'm 2 pawns up in this endgame, and I gave away all my advantage by playing f2. This is a blunder because after rook to f3, he's taking my my pawn. I cannot defend my pawn. So why did I make this blunder? So there is one kind of blunder check which is very important, and this is when you intend to move your piece. It goes on from the opening, middle game, end game, so this is universal principle, universal blunder check, and it goes like this. If you intend to move some piece, the first question you need to ask yourself, can this piece be captured, or can this piece be attacked? So of course, if you are moving the knight somewhere where the knight can be captured by a pawn, it's a typical blunder. So these questions are always to be asked. Can he capture my piece when I move the piece, or can he attack my piece? If he cannot capture, okay. If he can attack your piece, then you should ask yourself, okay, how can I prevent this attack? Can I defend the piece? Can I move away the piece, and so on? So you need to be aware every time you make a move, can he attack or capture your piece? And I'll show you some more examples of this. And I failed to do this blunder check here, so I played f2, and okay, so you know what happened. How could this be avoided? If I have asked myself these questions, so if I said, okay, I want to play this pawn to f2, can he capture my piece? No, he can't. Can he attack my piece? Oh yes, he can. How can he attack my piece? He can attack it like here or like here. There are two ways to attack my piece. If he attacks like here, I just promote, but if he attacks like here, okay, then I am losing the pawn. And the game ended up in a draw, and it should be a win. Okay, the next example, also from the online league. Here it was a very obvious blunder. So here I made knight to g5 move, thinking that I'm attacking this bishop, but in fact I was just checkmated the next move. So I blundered mate in 1. This also happened in long time control games. So why did I blunder this? Okay, what's the lesson? Okay, I mean, one lesson is, okay, of course I had to do more tactics and to increase my board vision, and then I will see mate in 1. Okay, but what is the error in my thinking process here? And this is the awareness of the weakness of the last move. So every time you make a move, several things happen. So your piece, it gets a new job, but it also abandons its old job. So if I play knight to g5 here, okay, this piece now has a new job. It attacks bishop and it attacks some other squares here. Fine. But what is the current job of this piece? So what is this piece leaving behind when it goes to g5? So what does this piece do here? Okay, it defends the pawn, and it defends some other squares in my territory. So I need to look at these squares. Which squares do I leave behind? And one of the jobs of this knight is exactly to prevent this checkmate. So this is typical weakness of the last move. So I moved my piece away. I gave my piece a new job, but since it has a new job, it no longer does its old job, and the old job was to protect h2 from checkmate. So every time you move a piece, you need to ask yourself which weaknesses I leave behind, or what was the piece doing before I moved it, and it will not be able to do anymore. Okay, let's go to the next example. This is also from the online game, long time control game. So here my position, I was black, and my opponent just played rook to h4. Okay, and I played f5, wanting to perform some kind of plans, and this was a blunder because now he can just take the pawn with check. So rook takes h6 check. I cannot capture because checkmate is coming, and this led to a very quick loss of the game. So what was the error here? What is the lesson I can learn? The lesson is, every time your opponent makes a move, you need to ask yourself several questions. One of the most important questions is, what does this piece attack? So this is the first and most important question. What is the piece attacking? And then other two questions is, how does it influence other pieces, and what weaknesses does it leave behind? So here the first thing I should have noticed, and I should have asked myself, what is the piece attacking? So the piece is attacking h6, and I should see, okay, can he take h6? And yes, he can, because this would be a checkmate. So this is one question. By the way, the two questions other you have to ask: how does the move influence other pieces? So you can see that when he played this rook, this bishop is influenced. This diagonal is opened, so you need to be aware of this. And also you should ask yourself, what weaknesses does the move leave behind, so you can exploit your opponent's weaknesses, because tactical opportunities arose when he makes a move, leave some weakness behind, and you can make tactics around this weakness. So these are the three questions you should ask yourself every time your opponent makes the move. But here I didn't even ask the first question, and this is why I blundered. Okay, let's go to the next game. This was the game from the over the board. So a classical over the board game, so 90 minutes plus 30 seconds increment. And this is the game against much stronger opponent, in which I was better, and I gave away the game in the blunder because I had lots of time on my clock, and my opponent was in very big time trouble. He had only like 3 seconds before the increment, so I wanted to play quickly to flag my opponent, and this is very bad idea. So this is one lesson I learned: don't try to flag your opponent, especially if your opponent is 2100 plus player. So don't try to flag him. Try to just keep calm and think about everything. So here I played rook takes c4. I took a piece, and I thought, okay, if he takes back, I can just take this pawn and we have equal game. I even have slight edge because this of this h pawn threat. But what happened in the game? Of course, I didn't do any blunder check. So every blunder check has to start with the question: if I make this move, can my opponent do check, capture, and threat? And of course, here he can. I mean, if I take this, he has this check for as first. So this check, I didn't even see this. You know, this rook is protected. It's still equal, but I didn't see this. So this was one way it was blundered, and the second way is well, again, to be aware of my opponent's plans. So what is the best move of my opponent? What are my opponent's plans here? So everything, all these questions should be asked before I made this move. So the game continued when I made this move. He found the best answer, and the best answer was just to put the rook behind the passed pawn, and I cannot stop this pawn. So I lost the game here. So this was a blunder. In fact, here I had a very good move. So in these very sharp positions, you should also consider all the checks, captures, and threats you have. So this is how you find the tactical combinations. So here the winning move was just to take the pawn, and because this knight is pinned, so he cannot take, because I'll just take the rook, and I will be better. So yeah, this was one blunder in which I just wanted to play quickly. I didn't do any blunder checks. I didn't look for checks, captures, and threats either for myself or for my opponents, and it costed me a game. And there is no reason why I shouldn't do this in this position. First of all, the position is sharp. He has a pawn who is about to promote, so every move can be the last move in the game. I had much time on the clock. I had like 25 minutes. So this is also the lesson I learned from this blunder. Okay, next example, also from the over the board game. This was in the league. I was facing a weaker opponent, and I had much better position. So you can see that I have better pieces activity. I'm 2 pawns up, and so on. And the only thing he could do is to try to trick me. So he moved his queen. I think he played something like this. And I was just thinking positionally. So I was thinking, okay, I can take the queen. I took the queen, and well, he had this in-between move. I was thinking here, I didn't calculate. I was just thinking about how to that exchanging queens are good for me because I'm better. So what is the lesson I can do? I can extract. So first of all, this last move, weakness of the last move is whenever you move the piece doesn't do what it used to do. So this queen had the job of protecting the rook. So the question I should have asked myself: if I move the queen, what weakness does this queen leave behind? And you can see that the queen leaves behind the rook. So I took the queen, and now suddenly this rook is unprotected, and he can take the rook with the check, and I'm losing the whole rook. Or there is another approach, because this position is very sharp. I should have asked myself, what forcing moves does my opponent have if I make the move? So this is this typical blunder check. So if I take the queen, what checks, captures, and checks, captures, and threats does my opponent have? And like I said previously, especially checks. So checks, you always have to check for checks in sharp positions like this. So another way to avoid the blunder is just to ask myself: if I take the queen, does he have any checks? And yes, he does. And this is check with winning the rook. So there are two motifs actually here, two different types of blunder checks, and I didn't perform neither here. And this is why I lost the game, but I learned a valuable lesson. Okay, the next position. This is also from the over the board game. In this position, I had a positional advantage. You can see that I'm better developed, so all my pieces are developed. He's not developed yet. This knight is pinned, and it will be pinned for a long time, it seems. This rook is very active, and I have pawn center. So huge positional advantage. And I just gave all this away. I was thinking about several possibilities. The best move here was just simply to capture the knight, and he has to double the pawns on the king side, and this would give me some permanent structural advantage. But I was thinking, okay, I'm not in a hurry. This guy is pinned, so let me just continue my development. And I played a rook to d7 here, and this is a blunder because he has this move, knight takes e5. Yeah, this knight was pinned, but now his knight is suddenly attacking my queen. So he's just winning a pawn. After all the exchanges, everything, he's winning the pawn. And, well, not just a pawn, but he also ruins my pawn structure. Later on, if you look at all the captures and recaptures, and, well, the game ended in a draw because I was lucky. Anyway, what can I learn from this? Like I said before, again, the same question. Whenever you move the piece, you should ask yourself, can this piece be captured or can this piece be attacked? So if I want to move my queen to d7, can the queen be captured? No. Can the queen be attacked? Yes, it can. This is the attack on the queen. And then I need to calculate this variation. And if I was to ask myself this question, I wouldn't have make this move. I'd probably play this and be in the better position. Okay, let's go to the next example. So next example is also from the over the board game, and it was league. And here I played, I made a blunder. I played rook takes h4, and my opponent didn't see the blunder. I was lucky enough, but the correct continuation was, I was thinking, okay, I'm now attacking the rook, so if she takes the rook, which she did, I'll just take the rook back. Otherwise, if she takes the knight, I will just continue and take the rook. But what I didn't see is if she takes the knight, then the rook is protected. So the correct continuation would be rook takes knight, and then I cannot take rook. I mean, if I take the rook, she'll just take back, and I will be with piece down, losing the game. So what can I learn from this blunder? Well, the same lesson like before. You always have to end the calculation with your opponent's move, not with your move. So here I did an error because this is what I was calculating. If rook takes pawn, if she takes the knight, I can take the rook. And the calculation ended, but it's her move. So I had to think about, okay, now it's her move. Does she have any checks, captures, or threats? Yeah, it was a girl I was playing against. So yeah, she does. She has this capture. So I calculated this, okay, I take, and the calculation stopped. But it's her move, and she has this capture. So again, calculation shouldn't stop on your own move. Okay, let's go the next example. This is 11th, so we have this and one more to go. So in this position, I lost the opportunity, the winning opportunity. So I was white, and it's my opponent's turn, and my opponent just played knight to e8, and here I lost. I played rook to c2, and this is a blunder because I missed a winning opportunity, and the winning opportunity was to play knight takes d5, because now this rook is unprotected, and if he takes the rook, I can just insert the check. He has to move away. I take the rook, and I have won the pawn. And the engine evaluation of this position is +6. So I'm winning because this will be passed pawn. He has so many structural disadvantages that this is as far as computer goes, this is completely winning. I can just penetrate here, and he cannot do anything. Okay, but I missed this opportunity. So why did I miss it? Let's now extract a lesson. So after he played knight to e8. Like I said, whenever the opponent plays a move, you have to look the weaknesses the move created. So what weakness does this move create? Well, it cuts the communication between rooks. And this means that that this rook is undefended. So there should be a light bulb in my head after he played knight e7, telling me, oh, this rook is undefended. And then try to think, how can I exploit this weakness? And I didn't even see this. So I guess, I can guess, I'm not sure that I would find this move. I think I would. But if only I realized after he played this move, oh, he's leaving his rook undefended. And then to think, how can I how can I attack this rook? This rook is undefended. Can I attack the rook? Can I make some discard attack and so on? So if I just ask myself the question, what weakness does the move create, and notice that the weakness is the undefended rook, there is a good chance that I would have found this nice move. Okay, and the last example is from the lone wolf game I played just yesterday, and I made a blunder, and you will see that well, now already the motifs are repeating, so you will see the same. I keep doing the same mistakes, but being aware of the mistakes is the first step to overcome it. So my opponent here played rook to f5. Before this, you can see that my opponent is a piece down, because he sacrificed his bishop on h6, thinking that he can deliver some kind of deadly attack, but he miscalculated. I found the refutation of this sacrifice, and now I just ended up with a piece up. So I'm winning the game because I'm a piece up, and he doesn't have attack anymore because I got everything covered. And here he played rook to f5, probably wanting to double on the rooks, and it's not a good move, but it doesn't matter. And yeah, I saw rook to f5. I thought, okay, he wants to double the rooks. He wants to attack my pawn. My pawn is defended twice, and I was thinking about this side of the board. And I played rook to g8, thinking that okay, I can now maybe have discovered attacks or something. And well, you can guess his next move. He just picked up the free bishop. Okay. So what was the error? The error was, like I said already several times, is that whenever your opponent makes a move, you should ask yourself the first question, the most important question: what does this piece attack? So what does this rook attack? Okay, it attacks the pawn, it attacks the knight, but also it attacks the bishop, and the bishop is undefended. So this is what I should have addressed. There are several good moves here. You know, just moving the bishop here, protecting the bishop, whatever. Maybe on here, I don't know, just hitting this, or well, I mean, there are several ways to play this position, but certainly not just to give away the bishop. Okay, so this is it. I have given you a dozen of examples, and I hope that you got the picture how you should approach your own blunders in your own games. And again, this works only for a long time control games. So if you made the blunder in the blitz, there is not much you can learn from it. You just blundered because you didn't see it. You didn't have enough time to ask yourself all the questions and do all the blunder checks which are necessary. But if you play longer games, either over the board or online, then you can really learn from your blunders and stop making the same blunders by correcting your way of thinking. Like I said, for us adult improvers, blunders are not something that just disappears. It will never just disappear. You need to put some methodological effort, and you need to fight against your blunders. And like I said several times, I believe that analyzing your own games and learning from your own mistakes is the best way to go. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked the video, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel. If you didn't, consider supporting the channel with a donation if you think it's worthwhile. And well, see you soon with more chess. Cheers.